So I felt this deck needed a in-depth review just because it had so much to explore. This is Rubaiyat, which is the final name for Mystery 3, which was initially sold, I believe, February 2024. And so we've seen multiple reiterations or iterations. Mystery 3 Craft, which turned into Caliph. And then we had this version, which is the test, and then the final version of this. So the test edition was Lotrek's decision to incorporate multiple different styles into one deck to figure out which combination of foiling and design would be the final version that he would choose. I actually like this approach. It lets not only him create efficiency in the process, but then also let us get a taste of what kind of decisions go into creating or deciding on the final product. I'd like to see potentially maybe even creating a poll. So say Lotrek has a test edition, he creates a poll and then says, "What do you guys think is the best?" Although I do like the idea of Lotrek being the ultimate deciding factor. I think as an artist, deciding what he enjoys the most and brings that forth to his patrons, or in this case, his backers, his supporters, whatever you want to call us. Now that Patreon is on pause or making some shifts, I think ultimately him deciding on that would be the best. So moving to the actual cards, firstly, we can see the red stock he used. So this isn't edge gilding as far as I can tell. It's the actual stock is red. Makes for a nice effect. I really like it. Now the backs, let me get my stylus real quick. So the backs, I'd say everything about this deck and the backs is incredible. The only critique I have, which is really hard to tell, is these fine lines in certain angles tend to disappear, making the entire kind of gold part seem a little bit flat, particularly in these areas, which is hard to catch on the camera. Other than that, I mean, look at the level of detail. I'm hoping this shows on the camera. Everything about it is wonderful. Oh, I also didn't show the back of the tuck, which is designed to mimic the backs. Now, moving on to the Ace of Spades. Here, what I really, really liked is the bordering. It almost has like a fingerprint design. It's got some slight embossing, intricate patterns. Here, the critique that I have would be these portions. If they were gold instead of silver, I feel like the ornamentation would stand out a bit more. One thing. So I'm a bit scattered on this. I wrote some notes down, but the tuck cutout, he decided to do the regular U shape instead of that kind of V shape he does. I found this to be a little bit harder to open initially, especially when I tend to keep the cellophane on the deck itself, which I'll put back in. But just a minor detail I found interesting that he chose this design, this cutout. So the Ace of Spades, where I definitely can compare to, and we'll get into some of these other ones here. So this one, do you see how he did the silver on the inside? Now, if he had reversed this and done silver on the other portions and gold on the inside portion, I feel like that would have been the most ideal. Let me see if there was. See, I'm spoiling some things. Oh, here's a great example. This is what I mean. So if he had silver on the inside, gold on the ornamentation, same here. So if he did gold on these inner portions, I'd be really curious how that would look, because on this one, I really like how this turned out. Particularly with the silver backgrounds, I'd be really curious if there was silver bordering, because he chose to do that on these, and silver bordering with the silver background really looks nice. So let's go back to the beginning. Now, looking at the cards, again, of all the borders he decided to do, I'd say this is probably my favorite, followed by, he did a couple of them solid. Like these ones have a solid background, or solid border. And then he also did these alternating square patterns, which I'd say looks really good on the backs. But I don't know how I feel about them on the fronts particularly, especially since I have the solid ones and these to compare to. Now going through, you'll see the number cards, beautiful ornamentation on the pips. And then we have new court cards. Now, these court cards, any new court cards, I welcome when it comes to Lotrek's work. Somehow he does a variation of standard and custom that still makes it playable and yet incredibly unique and stands out. Now, if you notice, with the hot foiling, you're getting some embossing effect where the art kind of pops out. It's pretty unique. I like this hot foil stamping, creating that contrast. Now, the only critique, in this lighting, it looks fine, but the court cards, and I know I'm not alone, I saw these comments in other places where the court card art itself can be a bit dark. I don't know if it's the same issue with Caliph or Mystery 3 Craft, where if it's the colors, the ink on the stock itself that's darkening them, or however it's translating from digital to print. If these could be brightened up just a smidge, it might have a different effect. It could also be that the varnish used, or maybe a lack of varnish. I mean, these seem like they have varnish on them. I tried to fan them earlier. Wasn't as smooth as some of the other decks. Oh, but even now, I guess after a couple times, it's doing a good job. I mean, look at that. Wow. So the court cards, no complaints. You know, any new court cards, they're not just the same ones rehashed. This is a wonderful addition and very welcome. I would again highlight the borders on these. Very, very much my favorite. Let's see what else. So look at the court cards. It's a gold background with the gold bordering. Definitely welcomed. Now here we see him try the silver background. What I found kind of maybe not the greatest would be, you see these like lined borders that he created? In the light, it kind of shines differently, right? So you'll see this part highlighted in the light right now, this part, this part, this part, where some are dull. It depends on how you angle it. Some of the cards had it completely solid, which I found to prefer. You'll see the issue particularly, so here, for example, right? The foil didn't register properly. And so you'll see flaking off, and then the actual underneath ink or the stock showing through. So yes, this can be fixed in later iterations, but I found this to be a particular issue. Coming back to these, so let's continue to go through. What I would have liked to see, kind of going back to the couple of cards that we saw earlier, where did they go? Oh, we haven't gotten to them yet. So here. Okay, now we get to see silver borders. Silver with the silver background, phenomenal. I would have loved to see if that silver background or silver bordering carried through with something like this. So we got the silver backgrounds, again, incredible quartz. And then if we saw silver background here, I would have loved to see if he tried it with the full suits, just to see what that would look like. But again, I do love this. Silver with silver, gold with gold, I think I would prefer more. This contrast, still effective, but we didn't get an opportunity to see what it would look like if they were the same coloration. Something that I also want to add, I'd be curious if Lotrek tried some sort of like copper foiling, bronze, copper, whatever you want to call it. Certain foiling, and you'll see here where he just throws the blue prismatic holographic foiling. I'm kind of curious if he just threw that in there just to see what it's like, but it definitely was a curveball. I would love to see some implementation of a copper foil. I know he's done red foil, blue foil, even going out of the box and using a foil like this. I would just be really curious if he could implement something that still has an ornate kind of aspect to it, but goes beyond just the gold and silver that we see. So looking at these court cards, love the contrast between the silver background and the courts themselves. So phenomenal. No complaints on the court designs themselves. Again, really blown away by the surprise in the new courts. I know he had posted this picture as a preview if anybody wanted to look at them. Of course I did. Couldn't help myself. Now, the Ace of Clubs. No complaints, just really curious. The prismatic foil doesn't seem like it fits in the overall design. Again, I'm just curious if Lotrek decided to do this just to see what it would look like, maybe for a future implementation. Now, let's see, going through these. Again, not a huge fan of the borders, but they still work in this regard. Going through the clubs. Again, wonderful ornamentation. And then we see here, so here he decided to do solid borders. These are very similar to Caliph's borders. Now, it does look nice. I think it looks cohesive. If he did want to add the designs, right, he keeps trying to push the limits. He said this would be probably one of his most intricate decks, most foiled decks in terms of design overall. I don't know if he'll try to keep pushing in that way. Yes, at some point it'd be nice to see foiled courts, you know, looking or thinking back on Arabesque. We had the beautiful Japanese silver foil on the swords, for example, to add an additional pop to the art. However, more foil may not always be good. I think it's a matter of the strategic use of foil. So here, you know, the foil here in the background carrying through to the borders and having that be consistent, I do also appreciate. So we get to see, again, some more core cards. Beautiful. The Ace of Hearts here. I didn't really like the ornamentation here where he just decided to throw silver in, particularly because this aspect right here, these designs, don't really contrast well with what seems to be more as the background. I know you see some like minor scratches here. I think these are unavoidable as much as Lotrek can try. He did actually do a great job with limiting any of the scratching, not necessarily scratching. What he said was the foil folding during the printing process that we saw in Caliph itself. It wasn't a major issue on the decks that I had, but I understand that that was particularly a problem that people had in the previous iteration with Caliph. Here, so we see silver foiling in the center part with gold in the background. Again, I'll highlight having these be similar. Here, I'll use the stylus. Having these be similar, silver background, silver bordering. I think particularly I really enjoyed. Now, the court cards themselves. Again, the silver background on the courts definitely makes the court card stand out more. I love the shine on them. It's not overwhelming in any way. Still adds beauty to the deck. I love it. Particularly now, I was surprised that people didn't really talk about the Jokers. I'm glad Arman posted some pictures highlighting he really liked the Jokers. Now, you can have them looking away from each other, but I would say them looking towards each other adds some cohesiveness between the two. The art itself is incredibly vivid. And then again, you'll see that embossing effect where the hot foiling pressed onto the cards adds embossing to the art, making it pop out more. And the vivid artwork with the peacocks themselves really reminds me of illuminated manuscripts from not only the era but also the region. So the cards themselves are based off of, if I'm not mistaken, Persian quatrains, the poetry written by Omar Khayyam. And since Iran is close to Armenia, the neighboring countries, I'm Armenian, and so we have a lot of peacocks in our illuminated manuscripts, so this really was an added appeal for me. Really like these, probably my favorites. The courts are absolutely, I'm a court guy, absolutely love them, but when it comes to the Jokers, I'm always taken away by Lotrek's creativity when it comes to the Jokers. So that's Rubaiyat all together. Again, beautiful deck. I'm actually going to fan it one more time because I really like the effect that it creates. Beautiful. So thank you guys. Maybe I'll do more of these. This is my first attempt. Oh my goodness. Hold on. This is my first attempt at a video review of a deck. Just mainly because of all the differences in the courts. I really wanted to highlight all the different decisions that Lotrek made to try to see which one would be best. So thanks guys.